Let's just look at each other for a second. So, young man, what's your name?
Kerby Lauderdale.
Wow, and how old are you, Kerby?
I'm 77.
Which means you were born in?
1938.
Wow.
Today we'll hear how some couples cope with the devastating news that their spouse was gay. Kerby and Linda, you are now divorced.
That's correct.
But you were married for 18 years. Right. What did the counselor say?
Have a good marriage, have a good sex life, and it'll go away.
One of the things that I'm discovering in showing pieces of these other interviews to audiences is the unique experience of hearing an older person talking about sexuality. People who realized that their boners were pointed in the wrong direction at a very young age. So anyway, here we are. I know a little about you, but not that much. Where were you born? Tell me a little bit about your family. And
I was born in Inglewood, California in 1938. The most significant other part of that is that my mother died as a result of that birth 10 days later. And I have always had that sense of identity as a motherless child, particularly since my dad was not, I was a disappointment to him. So it was difficult for him to communicate warm and nurturing feelings for me.
did you feel like he sort of blamed you?
As an adult, I certainly felt that made sense,
Oh.
that somehow that was a poor deal for him, giving up his wife for this infant boy, baby boy. And it wasn't too long, but certainly before I was 5, that he could tell I wasn't the athlete that my older brother was. And Dad was very interested in sports, and so he could play catch with Merle, and I couldn't throw a ball straight.
The sissy thing came up quickly.
It did. And I was nerdy. I wasn't too much of a sissy. I was pretty neutral in that respect, but I couldn't throw a ball straight and had no interest in doing so. And my dad, it made him very mad.
Did you feel different in relationship to your peers also?
Not in a major way. My physical action was fairly neutral. I wasn't much of a sissy, but I was enough that that it got suggested here and there, and particularly since I was not athletic.
Do you remember any teachings about sex or anything like that from your youth?
No, I don't.
That wasn't part of your early church experience?
Not in those days. This was early 50s. Well, no, it was earlier than that. It was late 40s. And so there was an assumed morality and not talking about sex, and not near the conversations that we have.
That's interesting. I mean, it became more of imperative as the culture became more sexual.
Yes.
To bring up those. So I hadn't really thought of that before.
And profoundly in the 60s when sexual revolution happened, prior to Stonewall.
The church just became more reactive.
Yes, and more defining how they understood sexuality.
Right. I mean, I know it's really hard to pinpoint things, but do you have a recollection of a time when sexuality started to bubble up in you and what that was like?
Very precise. I was in the Boy Scouts at 11 and a half. We had summer camp along the Kern River in north of LA, outside Sequoia National Park.
I know it well.
And we were all naked. And another fellow and I decided to swim across the river and see what was going on with a cluster of guys among the big boulders of that area. And as we approached this group, they were sitting in a circle and they were masturbating. And I was electrified. And since I knew we were all naked, because I remember comments about swimming across there, and the water was so cold, and everybody shriveling up and so forth. So I don't remember having an erection, but I must have immediately. And one of the guys, while I was standing there, ejaculated. And that was a very fortunate experience for me because it taught me things I don't know how else I would have learned. And I immediately knew about masturbation, and I didn't join them. I walked away fairly quickly because I had learned a lot about myself that I knew I needed to be careful about. So that is where I really became aware of myself as a homosexual. And
can you elaborate on what you learned in that moment? I mean, it's a really delightfully concise
it is.
experience.
Yes, so innocent, so positive. There wasn't any judgments about anything, and these guys weren't touching each other.
Was anything said?
There must have been something. One guy announced that he was about to ejaculate, and I'm coming, and I didn't know what that meant until I saw the delight on his face and the ejaculation.
Was there any discomfort on their part that you sort of stumbled onto them?
No, because we were part of the group, and I don't know how I imagine that was fairly spontaneous that ended up happening, and how there weren't any of the dads around. But this fellow that I swam with, and I just decided we'd swim back across the river.
And nothing was said?
No.
It's a great story.
It is.
I mean, it's interesting how often when those kinds of stories of those kinds of boy play come up, the people who have not had them tend to be really envious. They'd say, "Oh, that never happened to me."
Yes.
It's sort of like, I had bits and pieces of that all through junior high and high school in bits and pieces. And also for me, they remain very vivid.
Yes, this does. I have great pictures of it. And I had never had a wet dream, and I still haven't, but I lay that partly to the fact that I, at 11 and a half, could start masturbating. And so I found places to do that.
I've never had a wet dream either.
Yeah.
So. They're uncommon for us masturbators.
Evidently. It's a good trade-off.
Yeah. How did that experience start to manifest in your self-image in terms of?
I suppose the fear was greater than the pleasure because it was something that I knew I couldn't act on or communicate with friends.
Were you able to compartmentalize those feelings and those fears, or did they begin to have an impact over the way you engaged with peers, with family?
I would say I compartmentalized it. I was able to keep that to myself, pretty much. I found within 2 or 3 years a local gas station where there was writings on the wall that interested me. Nothing that I would follow through on, but the fantasies delighted me.
Did you ever masturbate in the bathroom looking at those things written on the wall?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I love that. When you came, did you feel guilt afterwards or shame?
Oh, yes.
What was that?
Knowing that the adults in my world would disapprove. Prior to my joining the Boy Scouts, and I had to have been 9 or 10, taking a Saturday night bath. And my father walked in the bathroom. I was standing there, and he looked at me and was immediately angry.
Mm.
And he said, "What's that?" And "What's what?" And I had an erection. But I didn't know what an erection was, and I had never known that I'd had one before.
Wow.
I made no effort to hide myself when he came in. And I had, I'm drying my back until fully exposing myself. So I was just blown away. What is what? And he said, "If I ever see that again, I'll cut it off."
Wow. What do you think he meant in that moment?
I think he was terrified in his, whatever his story is, about sexuality and masturbation. What happened after that was I dried off and he walked out, and then our routine was to go to each parent and give them a kiss before we went to bed. And so here I was in tears, and I had to go first kiss my stepmother, and she says, "What's wrong?" And I couldn't say. I said, "Ask Dad." And then I went to him, and I guess we kissed. I don't remember not doing that, and went to bed. And nothing was ever said about that ever again.
Wow. You did manage to masturbate and find pleasure afterwards. What do you do with something like that?
That's some years later. Thankfully, I came across that experience, and and that became the reason I'm gay.
That moment with your father?
Yeah, was one that in my own mind, and with the help of pastors and therapists who look for some anomaly in your family or some child terrorizing experience. So, and that's sadness in itself. That the thing I love about all of this is that we are still so ignorant about ourselves and so needing to have a story that makes sense, that we overlook the complexity and the wonder and the nonsense of human existence and sexuality. That's why being gay is such a gift to me, because I know as a straight man in this culture, I would think, what's with sucking cock? What's that all about? And I know it's as natural and spontaneous as straight guys looking at girls.
All of the kinds of experiences that you're talking about and that I've shared of like sexual anxiety, sex play, discovery of erections, how we figure out how to masturbate, all of that stuff is certainly not exclusive to young gay guys. But the fact that we know that the stimulus comes from a forbidden place completely alters the nature of that experience for us. When was the first time you had any kind of a mutually engaged sexual encounter with a guy?
When I was in college.
And had you had anything with girls prior to that, or had you been mostly virginal?
In junior college, dated this one girl that was really interested in me having sex with her, and so the farthest I could go at that point was for her to masturbate me, and that was awkward even because I was trying to make it happen, and I wasn't as excited as I would have been with a guy. But
you're sort of terrified and frigid, and she's playing with your cock.
Yes. Well, I had an erection enough, and I just wasn't sure whether she was willing to masturbate me long enough to ejaculate, because she seemed to be getting tired or something of it. And it was...
You have really clear and specific moments that are really potent.
The most potent followed within a month or so. When I was a junior at Berkeley, one of the younger, I think freshman students asked if he could room with me. And I said, sure. Turns out he was a gay man. And we found that out, I don't remember how quickly, but we did fall in love. And that lasted for several years, although it was very qualified. There wasn't anything romantic. I think the only thing we did was mutual masturbation. There wasn't much in the way of kissing. And we had bunk beds, and he wouldn't spend the night in one bed with me. He was just too frightened, even though no one could fit in.
So the first way you described it is you said you fell in love. And then you said it wasn't romantic.
Well, love in terms of infatuation, in terms of really caring about one another as close to love. You know, I couldn't have said this wasn't love at the time, and I didn't know that the absence of the romance would be, because I hadn't been romantically. I knew that the songs, the Johnny Mathis and so forth songs that gripped me, he wasn't interested in bringing any of that concept. Or
So
that
do you
life
think
into
he
him.
felt those feelings for you, though?
Yes, without question. That summer, I was hired to work for a lumber company in the Northern Sierras, and we arranged for him to drive his folk station wagon up and spend a weekend. Friday night after work, I sat out on the highway watching the cars come around the bend, waiting for his car. Just like Ennis in Brokeback Mountain sits in that upstairs room waiting for Jack to show up. So that we could drive into the Sierras anywhere and hike up to small lake and whatever, but he couldn't have sex in that context. He just couldn't relax, as if being caught somehow, and I think we did.
Could you have?
Yes.
You weren't afraid of being caught?
No.
Well, that's interesting. I mean, just even thinking back to your father and the "I'm going to cut your dick off," and then here you are in 1959, 1960, with romantic feelings to the point where you are open to, having sex in nature with some guy.
Hoping we would. Yeah, it was tremendous disappointment. The other aspect with Bob is that he didn't talk much about his experience or his fears or his whatever. But he was so cared for me, and as limited and constrained as that relationship was, it was more me than anything had been. I mean, we talked about life together, but there were no possibilities. I think we even investigated joining the Coast Guard or something.
That's interesting. I mean, it's like you're trying to figure out how to find a space in which you could secretly have a relationship and it wouldn't be detected.
Right.
Lots to contemplate in that process.
Yes. The gift to me in that spring was that there was a forestry professor from Purdue in Indiana that had a sabbatical in Berkeley, who had a scholarship to offer for graduate work, and I was offered that. Bob was a junior when I was a sophomore at that time, and actually, the day of graduation, he ended up in the campus hospital with a nervous breakdown, and my family was all there. I was the first one to graduate. They were all there, and it was a miserable as hell day. I was going home with them the next day and leaving all of that, and I didn't know to what. I did have that. I wasn't going to stay at home. I was going to Indiana and to Purdue, and so it was a very hard time.
One of the things that I think about is that even as gay people are becoming so much more free and have so much more acceptable presence in American society, the reality is that we are a tiny percentage of the population, and if we don't want to be isolated, we have to go to the big cities. Here you are, sort of breaking the notion of like that you wanted to go into, flower arranging or hairdressing, wanting to be in forestry and the challenges that brings up, and even choosing to go to a school that's much farther away from opportunities than you had in Berkeley.
Very much so.
How long did that last?
Oh, cultural. I was there 2 years.
Any sex? Any?
So here I am back at Purdue. The major professor has set up housing for me and arranged for one of the guys that lives in this housing to meet me. And he is the most nerdy looking guy I could have imagined. And about 2 weeks, we see these two gals that have dinner mostly every evening, and he suggests we ask them to go to Indianapolis to a race car. So sure, Jim's driving. And so this other gal is in the front with Jim, and I'm in the back with Ray. The dynamic, though, is that this other gal and I hit it off. And so she spends the drive down with her arm over the back seat, talking to me and so forth, which fits with the foursome there. But we really hit it off really well. And as it happens, that's the gal that I married later.
But when you say that you really hit it off in the car, in this car conversation with Linda, yeah? What did that feel like for you? Was that an unexpected feeling to be having those feelings for a woman, or how did you interpret that?
Well, they weren't sexual feelings. They were just, I mean, she was very talkative and friendly and telling her story, and I was telling mine, and so we just engaged very well. I asked Linda if we could have coffee together, something like that. We did. We did every night from then till Christmas break, which I was taking back to L.A. The reason for that was to get back to see Bob, and so I spent home at Christmas and then took the bus up to Berkeley and saw Bob again. Bob was sharing an apartment with his sister in Berkeley, and nothing could happen. Same standoffish. I don't know that we even had sex together at all. And I remember him taking me to the bus station to take the Greyhound back to January 1st or 2nd or whatever, and that was the darkest part of my life to that point. I was just so sad. I knew that there was nothing for Bob and I, and the only way I could imagine living comfortably, or emotionally comfortably, was to marry Linda then, and I think by the end of January, I asked her if she would marry me.
Why did you marry Linda if you knew you were gay? Didn't you think ahead, down the road, once again, this is going to bring heartache for both of us, and if we have kids?
No. There were no options in the early 60s about it at all. You didn't talk about it with anyone, and you couldn't speak about it to your parents. You had very great difficulty speaking. You didn't speak about it with peers or anyone.
We're going to move forward. I want to move backward a little bit because at this point there's been Bob. Did you ever find or seek out like anonymous sex or anything like so many gay men do? They discover bathroom and things like that.
Yeah, backing up to Berkeley, it was just before graduation, walking across campus and needing to use the restroom. And the minute I walked into that room, I knew something was going on there. And that's the first time I was aware of men meeting men in a restroom.
Mm-hmm. And did you participate or?
Not then. I went back a day or so. The guy that I connected with said, let's go to a private restroom. And that opened that world to me.
And did you have some more experiences like that prior to marrying Linda?
When I was at Purdue, I knew that was a possibility, and so, but the cultures of Berkeley and Lafayette, Indiana, were worlds apart, and there was hardly any that kind of action going on at Purdue.
By the time you had asked Linda to marry you, had you made out?
Yes, and we had sex several times.
Oh, you did have sex with her prior to proposing to her?
No, but prior to marrying her.
What was that like?
Anxiety was the dominant emotion, but pleasurable, but I had to work at it.
Was she a virgin? I mean, I'm asking Linda questions here, but... Sorry, Linda.
I think she was.
Did she feel your anxiety, do you think? I mean,
I don't think so.
You had a good sex life? Or was it an effort?
You'll answer it one way, I'll answer it.
She said yes. It was good for her.
Right.
Good for you?
Yes,
No.
was it as good for you as it was for me?
She had reason to hope that I was all that I was presenting myself to be.
How did you present yourself to her? I mean, did you tell her any of this stuff?
Not until it was a month or two after we decided to be married that I told her about my relationship with Bob.
Wow.
And I felt I had to do that. I just could not avoid that. I agreed and probably offered to Linda that I would be glad to see a therapist to work at this, thinking that it was changeable.
So you tried some varieties of counseling, and in that period, how did that?
A delightful older Freudian psychologist in Indianapolis.
Did he have a pipe and an accent?
Not when he was in session, but I'm sure he belonged somewhere in the scene. He was really a nice man, intelligent and so forth, but he really believed homosexuality was an arrested sexual development. The really bewildering question he asked me, they call it giving a blowjob, but why do they call it that? Since you're sucking off someone's penis. I was more surprised by the question. Anything else?
I don't know the answer either.
That's exactly what I said.
But did these counseling things give you confidence that somehow you might be able to have a... No.
No, there was part of me that knew this was the wrong thing to do.
Did those conversations about that aspect of you continue all throughout your marriage, or was there a certain assumption on her part
that I was getting better and okay? Yeah.
So the conversation diminished.
Yeah.
And you continued to be sexual with her?
Yes.
And
limited before we got married, but yes, we were enough. And then there was this couple upstairs in married housing that the guy was very attractive. And those ongoing just things that just cut life out from underneath you, cut your confidence, expose yourself to yourself.
Did you ever think at any point that maybe you shouldn't get married to him?
No, I don't really think I ever did. We were very good friends, and we were soulmates in many ways, shared the same interests, the same values, so it did work.
Was there at a point during your marriage with Linda that you were not faithful in terms of your sexuality? Is that something you're comfortable talking about?
As comfortable as the rest of it, yes.
Well, I mean,
yes,
she's alive.
yes.
She's a close friend in your life, which we'll find out more about. And
well, I got the master's degree in forestry at Purdue, forest economics, and during that time decided I didn't want to pursue the PhD program, that I had more interest in religion than I did because I had even considered that while we were at Purdue studying religion. So I decided the best way, or we decided together the best way to do that was to go to the seminary. So we graduated from seminary in '68. Our first pastorate was in Oakland, right back at Berkeley. Mm-hmm. I knew my way around Berkeley. And that was more of the same.
Meaning more cruising?
Yeah, I think because I knew where to go, and there was much more cruising life in Berkeley campus. And a couple of incidents there worth commenting about, which just created such ache. We'd cruise in the gym, and then frequently let's go to a more private restroom. And so this guy that was just incredibly handsome, he was a black guy, and he said, let's go to, and so we did. And just being in touch with each other physically was, that's like, it didn't take much, the kind of spontaneous physical connection we had, even the walk over there, when he said, let's stop this, talk outside. And I said, oh, I can't. And so I didn't ejaculate it. And then he still said, let's meet outside. And when I went outside, I couldn't talk to him. I ran. I hated myself for all of that. And yet, had pity at the same time. We were driving from the Bay Area out into the valley to meet with other pastors on a Sunday evening.
You and Linda?
Yeah. I think we had made love that afternoon. And I felt after that experience that that was very satisfying for me and that this, I may be getting somewhere. I genuinely felt, wow. And on the way out of town, stopped at a grocery store and Linda waited in the truck and I was in there for something. Coming toward me was another guy, another black man. And we looked at each other and I just melted. Fuck. But that was a turning point in my consciousness that this is too deep. He spoke to me and I spoke to him and he said, "Can we get together?" And I think I went, oh God, that I can't.
So this is before Gay Liberation, before, so it's all based on intuition, all of these connections with people. It's all, this guy in the grocery aisle. You had enough intuition to get a sense, I'm interested in him and he's interested in me back. Yeah. That kind of gaydar was already, was so, you had a lot of confidence in your intuition at that point.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's what's been haunting for 50 years. The nights that I crawled in bed with a woman when I should have been crawling in bed with a man. And when it got to Jeff and I curled up behind him and I was in my 40s and we were naked together and spooning and I just thought, this is exactly who I am.
Did you feel guilty towards her?
Yes, immensely. All the years when Linda was embracing me with that kind of passion and I wasn't able to reciprocate. The wonder that she is and why we were together and why we have remained friends. And this is jumping ahead a bit, but it's relevant. When it came time, and this is, we'd been married for 17 years, and I was telling her that I needed to deal with myself as a gay man. And so she knew we were likely to separate. And she said to me, as we turned out the lights, "How do you know you're gay?" And I knew she was asking what my experience had been that proved to me, because those experiences that she didn't know about. And I told her times that I had been with guys in restrooms, and she listened and did not hate me. She knew, she felt that I was pained even in the doing of those experiences. And so what we had, the part of our relationship which worked was genuine, and she was that. I mean, she could sense. I think she was hard on herself for not, how could all of this have happened and I not known about it? But why she's been the most important person in my life. It still is. Yeah. One of those, and that's what's so strangely wonderful about life is that we can feel those connections in the most strangest and the most complex situations.
Do you still love each other?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Very much. Mm-hmm.
Isn't it heartbreaking to have to divorce a man after 17 years that you're still in love with?
Yes, it's very hard. It's very difficult.
Do you cry about it?
We cried together. It wasn't just me crying. We spent a lot of time crying and holding each other and saying, how are we going to do this? What makes sense? And we knew that what we had to do was an important thing to do for who we each were.
You told her that conversation in 1980, that you were realized you were gay. A lot happened in the interim, like children. Thomas, your first child. How did that come about?
This was 8 years into our marriage.
Had you been trying to have children?
Yes.
And why do you think you hadn't had children?
Well, because of some assholes didn't do his job, some army physician. I have a varicocele, which is varicose veins in my scrotum.
Oh.
And they didn't say, if you want to have children, you need to get this checked out or go see a doctor about that. He did not say that. So that was the reason that we weren't able to conceive. We were close to thinking about adoption anyway, so we just said, well, let's just do that.
Are all 4 of your kids adopted?
Yes. So Thomas is our first. It just became a very delightful experience. We both loved being parents. We began thinking about whether we wanted to stay in California. Her brother had 4 children in the Midwest, just Indiana, Ohio area. And so we thought about moving back there. Also thought about having a second child after Thomas was a year or so old. So we got another baby, and that was Aaron. So we arrived in Indiana. This is outside of a small town. There was a piece of land that came for sale right next to the church, 5 acres, and it had a house. And then I began thinking, I could grow things on this. We could have a nursery. And that came fairly quickly. I think it was in 76 that I quit the pastorate and did the nursery full time.
Wow.
That's jumping ahead of 2 more children, because after we were in Indiana, we talked about let's get a 3rd child, and the process took less than a year.
So how does this integrate with the sexuality? I mean, becoming parents to 4 children, and yet clearly this issue isn't going away. And gay people were becoming more and more visible then.
That wasn't happening in the early 70s when we were first there, but it was happening mid-70s and late 70s.
Were you aware that there had been a riot at Stonewall? Were you aware that there was a gay liberation organization?
The first gay pride things, yes, in 71.
Yeah, 71.
Yes, and when the village people showed up.
That was later.
Yes, but it was so, well, that's when I realized, something is happening here, and the community, the culture is becoming aware that there's some normality here, something that can't
The
be
normality of the village people is really what propelled you out of the closet.
No, that's an exaggeration.
You heard that YMCA song and you thought,
well, I certainly knew what was going on there. That didn't escape me.
it's just the first time the village people have come up in any of these interviews, so I'm just a little bit...
Well, I'm glad to finally bring that up.
Well, I mean, again, because your journey is different. I mean, everybody else is sort of, that I've interviewed, nope, I haven't interviewed anyone else who had been married. So there's a certain isolation that you have from the political and social currents in relationship to homosexuality. And yet, certainly internally, it's just it's a different, totally different window on this. And you're not talking to Linda, and you are having some anonymous sex. You have 4 children, all adopted.
It wasn't until then, a couple of years into the nursery business, that it entered my mind that I could deal with this sexuality. And the reason for that was, and I'm thankful to my brain and soul for this, that while I was pastoring, I knew there was something in me knew that if this was ever came up, it could be catastrophic for the family. Any pastoral situation where that comes up, you're immediately out of the community. And so I was as careful as I could be, and still reckless to some degree. Not reckless, but taking risks. And once we were independently employed, and we were a wholesale nursery, so we weren't even dependent upon the goodwill of the community. That's when it occurred to me, and the triggering incident was I had hired some guys from this college from time to time to work at the nursery. And in January of 1980, this one fellow and I were having a conversation in the greenhouse. It was January and winter and bleak and all that, but he was talking about his life as a student, and he'd been to Europe for an exchange year and was back and was dating this gal, and all these things were going on in his life. And he says, I've been focusing on whether I'm gay or not. It could be a phase I'm going through because I'm also dating this girl. And that phrase gripped me. And I just told him, you need to be very careful about that decision or that contemplation, because if you are gay, it's not a phase. It's unchangeable.
Did you feel in some way you had revealed something to him about yourself?
Oh, yes, I knew. And I may have said, that's my experience.
And you went home and you told Linda this?
Mm-hmm. I told her that within a night or two.
And was that the beginning of that conversation?
Right. It was a month or two later that she asked, how do you know you're gay? But she knew things were going to change. She says, when you told him, I know that because that's been my experience, I expected you to go on to say, but I've changed. And I didn't say that. And she went to the library within the week, got 2 books out of the library. One was a dreadful pre-70s treatment on homosexuality. Is you got to play ball with your boys and dolls with your girls. But the other one was Homosexualities by Kinsey people in the study of San Francisco. And it was the first time that I was able to read in print that homosexuals could be normal human beings.
How did you feel at that time when that decision was made, Linda? What was in your heart?
Oh, I was devastated. You know, here was this marriage, 4 young children, my best friend, all of my hopes and dreams about what marriages are and how I intended to live out the rest of my life with parenting and being with a partner. Just like, okay, where do we go from here?
18 years of marriage.
Yeah, right. Mm-hmm.
4 children.
Right.
So you're no longer working as a pastor, you have the nursery, you have this conversation with this young man who is wondering whether or not being gay is just a phase, which then triggers this kind of momentous moment for you in relationship to your marriage with Linda. How does this play out over the coming months in terms of what happens to your relationship with Linda, and how do you start to begin to embrace the gay aspect of your life?
Fairly quickly, we spoke to the pastor of the church in town, which was a college church in a sense, and he was extraordinarily supportive of us engaging this conversation with each other and being open to where it might lead. We didn't know at that point that we would separate, but it was a context in which we could caringly take our time in deciding what we were going to do. There was no deadline of any sort.
Well, let me reflect something back at you, because again, we're talking 1980? 1980. So I'm already have lived in San Francisco for 3.5 years in an incredibly gay community in a town where there's a tremendous amount of gay political power already, and Harvey Milk has been elected and assassinated, and all of this is very public. How much of what was going on in the outer world for gay people were you actually seeking out to know, and to what degree do you think maybe the opposite was true, that you were either naive to it or trying to avoid it?
I was aware of it. Anything that got published in newspapers or news stories, I was aware of. I was aware of Harvey Milk's election and the Moscone executions or murders at the time. It all propelled me, was additionally motivating, because I knew within myself that this was a core identity of mine, that it wasn't transitional or ill.
How did your boyfriend come into your life? Was there a period in your separation from Linda that you were like playing the field and being very sexually active, or did you meet your partner quickly? How did your emergence into the gay life actually play out?
We didn't meet until I moved to Portland.
Okay.
I found a gay support group in Indianapolis, and she was supportive of my driving there on a weekly basis or monthly basis to meet with these fellows. It was actually in the baths in Indianapolis that I met a fellow that we did begin seeing each other regularly, and he became part of my social life and in some sense family life.
Were you still living with Linda?
No.
No, you had already separated at that point.
It was the end of 1980 when we separated, and January of 82 when we arrived in Portland.
And in the interim, you were in this gay support group, and you had also met this guy at the baths who you were having something of a relationship with.
Right. A very fine guy, and the boys liked him, the kids enjoyed him, given the strain of a separating family. And he drove out with us.
Oh, wow. With you and Linda and the kids?
No, we didn't move together because we had to sell the nursery in the wintertime. And Linda thought that it would be well to keep the kids in school and come out after we got settled. But Raul rode out with us, and that was very helpful to us, and spent a couple of days here in Portland. Was fascinated by the city, but then flew back to Indianapolis.
And that was the end of that relationship?
Right.
Yeah.
The end of 81, I took a trip to the West Coast, and I gave Bob a call.
Your college?
Right, to see if he was around and so forth. And we did get in touch, and he said, yeah, he was going to be, he was living in Mexico at the time, but he was going to be in California, and we saw each other for the first time in 20 years.
Was he gay? I mean, was he?
Yeah.
He was?
He'd never been otherwise. And had never had a heterosexual relationship. He'd been in the Peace Corps and then settled in Mexico. So most of the time he was there. And it was a very disappointing reunion. I anticipated the chance to talk with him about what the experience was like for him that 20 years earlier, 18 years. He had no interest in talking about it, nothing to say. Got in bed together, and it was deadly. It was just, there again, there wasn't no romance at all, no tenderness, no whatever. We didn't have sex, basically. It was confirmation of the experiences we'd had earlier, and that certainly there had been no mistake in our separating and going different ways.
Telling your spouse is hard enough. How do gay parents inform their children that their marriage is ending, and why? Linda says she and her husband told their kids as a couple.
What we knew right away was that we needed to share this with the children really early because we had been such good friends and had such a good relationship. There wasn't much way for them to understand why we were divorcing if we didn't tell them exactly why.
I told the kids in 1980 when we had this year-long process, and the decision was what to tell them. And we decided to tell them that the reason we were separating is because I'm gay. And we're just as pleased that they didn't know what that meant, but they had the language that was true to our situation, and they would learn the implications of that, but it would be less a shock. And it was appropriate to how we were changing our family structure.
Yeah.
I am Thomas Lauderdale, the son, proud son of these two wonderful people, Kerby and Linda, and I would like to say that I have learned so much from them, incredible amount. I owe everything to my parents for their honesty, their courage. I think I've learned more about the world. I know I am much more honest with my friends, my family, my grandparents, thanks to them. And
You must be very proud. Thank you. Thank you.
And for those who don't know, your son Thomas is a homosexual,
yes.
like we are.
Which I guess we should say, because I had the sense when he was a toddler that he could be gay. And then, of course, he still at a very young age started playing the piano and had very significant talent. We introduced him to a summer stock theater in Warsaw, Indiana. They were calling for children to play in The King and I. And of course, he was perfect. In fact, he was the only Asian kid at all in the tried out, but he was among them and acted well enough that they invited him to audition for Pippin, which followed that, and so he got to play the little boy in Pippin.
Did you and Linda talk about your thoughts that he might be gay?
Yes.
You did?
Yes. We hadn't addressed that with him yet, but we both suspected that. And Linda really was never shocked or pained by that.
I mean, it's funny because usually kids are so terrified of telling their parents, and in so many situations, the parents know long before the kids know, or at least suspect.
Which was the case as we moved to Portland, and he, in high school, his friends were gay, but he never talked about being gay himself, never said that he was gay, and that he didn't come out to us formally until he was at Harvard.
How long is it before you meet your partner?
I joined the Gay Men's Chorus the second week I was in Portland.
Oh, wow.
I think it was sometime within the first few rehearsals that I saw Jeff in the chorus, and we had a chance to talk. I didn't know how old he was, but he was 26.
And how old were you?
I was 43.
Oh.
I thought he was older, and he thought I was younger.
Oh. Isn't that always the way it goes?
Age didn't matter to him. He never communicated or made any jokes about my being old. It was very uncomfortable for me, and I don't know why I couldn't make peace with it, but my own vision of my relationship is always someone that was my age, and there were cultural aspects of that, music and friends that his friends were roughly his age, and the music that he loved and all of that.
But for you, I mean, this is, as I'm hearing your story, this is the very first time that you've really felt a fully kind of romantic connection with another man. That must have felt pretty incredible.
It was, and the first time we were able to be together, to spend the night together, was following a Pride concert of that year, 1982. Linda and the kids had moved a couple of weeks and were settled, and so she could keep all the kids overnight. And so he and I spent the night at his home. It was all I'd hoped it would be. We were a very good match physically. The song that perpetually takes me to that night was "The First Time Ever I Saw Your Face, first time ever I kissed your mouth, first time ever I lay with you."
How long were you guys together?
14 years.
And did he move in with you at that point?
Very soon. I had requested that he tell his folks before we moved in. I guess I had the hubris for that because I had told my folks.
And your not so gentle father.
Yes.
How did he respond?
Well, I waited a long time because I needed to have a thorough sense of what I was saying and how I wanted them to respond. And that worked. My dad called me the day he got the letter and said how disappointed he was and sad, but that he loved me.
Well, that's
remarkable.
That last piece is good.
Yes.
Yeah. He actually said that he was disappointed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know why you wanted to do this or needed to do it or something, and why you couldn't work things out and that sort of concerns, but he did say, "I love you and you're my son." And I knew that was about as far as he could go. It was in that month of September, October, I remember looking at each other and saying, "Do we want to be monogamous?" And he said something to the effect that yes, I'm not comfortable imagining someone else having this experience with you. And that was something we shared. And it was in that same year that he got notice that he was still a carrier for hepatitis B, which had been diagnosed. He'd been diagnosed earlier in the year. So he informed me that we had better use precaution.
Precaution because they thought the hepatitis B was sexually transmitted?
Yes.
So what kind of precaution?
It was just
condoms?
Condoms,
Uh-huh.
yeah.
And was this before you knew about AIDS?
With him, yes.
Uh-huh.
The test wasn't available.
But you knew that AIDS existed already?
85, yes.
So you were using condoms within a monogamous relationship because of hepatitis?
Right.
Yeah. Wow, that's an interesting juxtaposition of, well, serendipity, I guess.
Yes, it is. And that may well have been what saved me, because he had been infected for some time. Our assumption is that he got HIV from the same person that he had got hepatitis from. That's speculation, and God knows I speculated everything, because he wouldn't talk about his personal past, like my father, like Bob. That's a psychological craziness, but it was a key factor in the pain for both of us in our lives, between us.
When did you actually find out that he had HIV? How far into your relationship?
Well, in 85 or so. And of course, there were guys dying in the chorus by this time. I'd had one or two funerals that I'd been the minister over. And everybody was worried about it and not knowing whether they had it or didn't. And the test became available in, I think, about 85. So I went ahead with it, and 2 weeks later got the word that I was not infected. And then a month or 6 weeks later, in bed, he said, "I got results from my test today, and I'm positive." And I guess I knew at that point he would likely die of it. We held each other. Nothing more was said.
When did he get sick?
It was in December of '94 that he got bad enough that one morning I said, I think you need to go to the hospital, and he agreed. But it was the next night that I got a call that they wanted to intubate him and wanted my permission to do that. But he got better and came home, and his 40th birthday was the 1st of March that year. So we had a big birthday party for him, friends from work and so forth. But that was his last.
He died that year.
He died in June, 20th of June. I woke up and he was having a seizure. Then the doctor said then that he was dying and that there wasn't anything more to do. So we began setting up hospice. About 4 or 5 o'clock, he struggled with a little breath and then died. But he couldn't hear or see. I was so glad to be there.
This is a lot to revisit. Is it helpful to talk about it? Is it uncomfortable? I mean, I don't know what this is.
Yes, it's helpful to revisit. I'm not worn down by the feelings. I guess I like revisiting the story.
What year was it that he died? 96? Almost 21 years ago now. You had your pre-married gay experiences, you had your time married to Linda, you had this incredible experience with Jeff when you finally were able to blossom as a gay man, and now you've had almost 21 years of experience of life as a gay man subsequent to his death.
The richest part of that was being asked in 2001 to return to the pastorate. The Church of the Brethren has one congregation in Portland, and they had been very receptive to us as a family in 1982. Jeff had attended there some with us. They all knew him. They'd gone to chorus concerts, and so being asked back as an openly gay man to pastor this church was tremendously affirming for me.
I mean, we haven't really talked at all about your experience being a pastor then, but it is so striking, of course, that to some degree part of the reason you left being a pastor was because of the fear around being exposed as a gay person, and to have this, full journey, full circle into being asked as a gay man to return into that position. It's a very beautiful cycle.
It was a great cycle, yes.
How long did you continue working as a pastor again?
12 years, from 2002 to 2014.
Now, I know that there was one particular very personal experience as a pastor that was powerful in relationship to your family, with Linda.
Yes. It was 98. Linda was still single and suggested, why don't we go to Scotland? And so we did. And about a month or two before we were to go, she had been online with a fellow, and they connected. So the trip went well, and came back, and he was still interested in her, even though he knew she was going off to Europe with her ex-husband, but who was gay. And so I met him soon after we got back, and they fell in love and decided to move in together very quickly. And then it was another year went by, and they decided to get married. And they talked about it, and Ken actually asked me if I would officiate at their wedding, and I happily did so. It's been wonderful for all of us.
For someone who's hearing your story, it's a pretty unusual journey, and yet there are probably many men who will relate to it who also married in spite of their homosexuality. Your life goes on, your relationship with your ex-wife is rich, you marry her to her new partner. What is it for you to look at that kind of cycle of ups and downs and struggles and triumphs? And
it's life. I don't believe there's any purpose or direction or progress in life. I think it's neutral. And I think for most people, it's, my own experience has been, it's pretty much a balance between delight and distress. There's always exceptions to that, but I think generally we have a fair balance between that that's beautiful and nurturing and that that's terrifying and sad. And that those things paradoxically belong together. Annie Dillard has this phrase, the flawed nature of perfection. And I think bringing perfection and flawed together is brilliant. When I had the opportunity to speak at someone's memorial service or funeral service, one of the things I thought was crucial was to speak to something about that person that was problematic, that was somewhat of an embarrassment, but that everybody knew was part of that person's life, so that we realize that we embrace one another as flawed and perfect, and that embraces all of life.
Are you okay with that?
Yeah.
Let's stop.